Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max.
Welcome, everyone. We are the Geek Patrol, and our microphones don't have a stun setting. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmsted and Alan Gilbreth and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And this weekend is the 50th anniversary of Jaws, and we wouldn't be a pop culture show if we didn't weigh in on that. I mean, it was a seminal movie. It's a movie well, I don't know that we can say everybody knows it. I doubt a 22-year-old has seen Jaws. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Brandon, you know more about the younger generation.
Jaws is one of those things that if you actually intend to keep your geek card, you need to watch.
No, I mean,
it falls into the same line as things like The Fifth Element. Whether you like it or not, you have to see it at least once. So I'm sure a lot of these younger folks have been introduced to Jaws probably against their will by an overbearing parent.
Right. So I don't assume anything anymore. I've heard things like, that movie's from the 90s. It's really old or something like that.
It is really old if it's from the 90s.
Right. But
that makes it 30 years old. So this movie's from the 70s. It's ancient.
It's 50 years old. But you will not find a single person that you can't go up to and go, da-na.
Right.
Da-na, and they know where it's from, whether they've seen the movie or not.
So we're going to talk about that today. Before we get to that, though, I'm throwing something. I always love throwing things at you guys blind. Usually it doesn't work.
You know, Joe, you shouldn't throw us blind things after you've teased something else, because we usually don't end up getting back to the thing you teased.
We got plenty of time. We'll get back to this. So, okay, but here's what I was going to throw at you guys.
Oh, Max, did you realize that he missed out on the Batman Begins 20th anniversary on our Father's Day episode? The one movie that gives us more Thomas Wayne than any other Batman movie?
We also missed out on June 16th, it being the anniversary of Batman Forever.
Nobody wants to celebrate that. Max, go back behind the glass.
Yeah, I was going to say, who wants to celebrate that abomination? So, okay.
I did. I liked it.
You would.
Yeah, but you
sticks the car.
Never mind. I'm not falling for the bait. I'm gonna ignore that.
Alan was selling glow in the dark chalk at that time. So. Okay. Brandon, yesterday was World Day of Music, and the basic idea of the holiday it came from France. Max, I know how much you love the French. So
go on.
And basically, the point of the holiday was. It was getting people out to celebrate music. In other words, don't go to some concert hall or don't do something. Go out as a community and create music, or even whatever. Your neighbor grabs his banjo, the other guy grabs the trombone and whatever. And
when my neighbors start grabbing instruments, I start grabbing my earmuffs, because I love my neighbors, but they like to make noise.
Well, here's my premise. I feel like our culture is getting way, way, way too immersed in just absorbing art rather than creating art. And I'm not saying create art just because, you're going to create your art and maybe get famous or rich. Creating art is its own reward. Writing a story or making a painting or building something. And so I feel like our society, I hope there's going to be a trend towards turn your phone off and start making art of your own.
I'm going to make a comment here.
Okay.
And I'm not meaning this to be disparaging to you.
Okay.
Because I know it wasn't your intention. But when you started off that entire thing by going ahead and negating the idea of doing it for money, you basically discouraged people from doing it at all, because they don't, those who want to make money are now going to feel like, oh God, that's the only reason I'm making art. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And those who would make art on their own, go ahead and show that the world's only going to think they're doing it for money, which makes their art feel disingenuous to themselves. So you may have just killed some inspiration.
What I meant by that is
I know what you meant by it.
Well, I mean, don't go in there with like, I have to. In other words, don't let whether you make money at that be the basis of your enjoyment of art.
But you should never preface why anybody should do art, because that makes you a gatekeeper one way or the other, whether it was your intention or not.
Now, are you gatekeeping me by that comment?
No. I'm saying that by saying it the way that you did,
all right, whatever.
You may have killed the inspiration of some people who would want to make art.
I'm here for the money.
Okay.
Well, we know what you're here for.
That's like I'm
and
good.
We know why I'm here. I'm here to basically destroy every theory that you have.
Well,
and if I get paid to do it, awesome. And if I just get to have fun and rile in the chaos, I'm good there too.
All right. However I phrased it.
And that thus is an art form.
Yeah. however I phrased it, Brandon, here's a perfect
Right.
example. In I think it was 7th grade in art class, they taught us about. I'm sure you guys did this same lesson. Basically, they taught us about perspective, and they said, okay, find your horizon line. You draw, and we used they allowed us to use like straight edges and
Well, I
this.
mean-
So you make a horizon line. Then they talk about the vanishing point, and they and so a lot of us made like cityscapes, and we used the rules of perspective and everything. And a lot of the art came out pretty cool. And one of my favorite pieces of art was this cityscape I made.
I used
and,
it to make a cemetery.
Okay, there you go.
And I still do that to this day before we lay out our cemetery in the front yard every Halloween.
yeah, but it
I
was
say, that ain't stopped. That ain't even changed.
And I don't get paid for it either.
yeah, but it's an enjoyable experience. It had nothing to do with really making money or anything. It just
Right.
was something. And I have to believe when you're making art, your brain is doing something positive.
Or kind of case in point for my instance, I've been kind of steering away from listening to music and rather learning to enjoy making music myself. Or like for example, I play piano. I like the idea of playing. I find it more rewarding to play something and work my way to perfecting a piece as opposed to like listening to a piece, because it's like the way I heard it put is that like sheet music, or like when you're like trying to learn to play a piece, it could be almost like a journey, and the map map was created by the composer that you're utilizing the music from.
Yeah, and you're unlocking something. I don't know. Do you guys?
No, I think Max is absolutely right. Especially it's just as prevalent if you're just doodling and you don't know what you're
Right.
actually, you put pen to paper and you don't know what you're actually going to get when it's all said and done. Whether you're writing poetry or you're drawing or and with Max, do you try and write out your music or do you just go to the piano and do your thing?
I learned to memorize it.
Okay.
Yeah. So you play by ear, right? So.
I play by ear, yeah.
Also, it's funny you just said that, Brandon, because we had a chance to interview, what was her name? Charles Schultz's wife,
Right.
Jean Schultz, and she said whenever he was stuck and he didn't have an idea, he would just doodle, and it activated his brain,
yeah.
and he got ideas. So, all right, well, I think there's value to creating art. We'll have a few parting thoughts, and then we're going to talk about Jaws.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. Sharknado was an inside job. The Geek Patrol is back.
And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I think I know where Max is going with that. I'm Joe Thorderson, here with my buddies Brandon Olmsted and Alan Gilbreth, and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, before the break, we were talking about. Well, I was trying to ramp up a conversation about the joys of creating art for art's sake, and just the fact that I think our culture. I mean, okay, I'm just going to speak for myself. I absorb way more art than I create, and I think I need to tune out a little bit and just start going. I need to get back to writing stories and doing things that, whether I make money at it or not, I just enjoy doing it.
Joe, considering your profession, I don't really think that you absorb more than you create. I think that you create a lot of art. It may just be someone's new countertop or their shelves or their cabinets.
Oh, okay. I didn't think of that. Yeah, when you build stuff, that's true. Yeah.
And I'm gonna say it outright. I'm not trying to first off, guys, I don't need a buttered up Joe. I feel that I get more out of him when I insult him.
Yeah.
But I remember going and meeting with you over at Crosstown at their art center while you were working on somebody's shutters.
Okay.
Those shutters were beautiful.
Oh, that's right, in the wood shop there.
Right.
Yeah.
They were seriously intricate, and they were gorgeous. They were a work of art.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. But that's true. But yeah, maybe you're right. So I don't know. I just think we all as humans need to make things.
Absolutely.
I think that fulfills us.
Creation. So. I mean, and a lot of people will tell you that content creation counts, but no, it's not. I mean, there is some content creation that can be considered art. But if you're just reacting to a video, I may love to watch you laugh, but your laugh is not going to inspire me to go and do art.
Or maybe radio theater is more so of an art rather than
it's totally
content creation.
Absolutely. And anybody who one of my favorites is Raven Reads, which she does nothing but read horror stories, but she puts production behind it. And it comes across a lot more than someone who's like going, we got this scary TikTok of what might be a ghost, but it's really just somebody's phone glitching.
Yeah.
Kind of makes me think of those Batman audio adventures.
Those Batman audio adventures
those are great.
were awesome.
Yeah, I love those. So, but it's also interesting. I think sometimes doing, you really got me thinking, Brandon, when you said doodling is actually can be important. It's like, sometimes you're doing one activity to activate something else.
Right.
Like that doodling may come to nothing, but as you're doing it, you're freeing up your mind and you're creating a whole story in your mind, and maybe that'll...
It has the same effect as if you've got anxiety and you use a fidget spinner to tell, while you are...
Turning your brain off.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, keep in mind, the consumption of art and the production of art are going to level out. You cannot
what do you mean?
consume art without making it.
You think so?
I know so.
Huh.
What
do you mean by that? I'm not sure I
If you
understand.
listen to music all day long and then you're just walking across the field, you're going to start humming to yourself. You're going to start playing it back in your head. You got a favorite movie scene. You got some terrible quote from some awful play you saw once upon a time. You know what, guys? It's all art. It's all creativity. Every single thing you do, every T-shirt you wear, ball cap you look at, or pair of socks you put on, somebody had to create, somebody had to think of it, somebody had to make it.
Yeah.
And I think the role of creation and consumption are very interchangeable. For example, whenever I go to a particular gallery around town and I look very intently at a piece of art, it makes me want to create art myself. And so, but I can't get that inspiration unless I actually absorb art.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that, Max, because it's funny. The older we get, like we're, when you're deciding, okay, I have that big blank wall over there, I would just as soon take something that I made myself or take something that my kids made rather than going and buying some big, something from buying some print that they've made 50,000 other prints and it's the same thing. I'd rather have something unique and original. Just whether it's as good a quality or not, I don't care because there's a story behind it. So
yeah, I'll never hang any of my own stuff in my house. But what's really great is go to any of the local art shows or conventions and commission a piece.
Yeah, yep. But I will say before we move on, if there's we have a circle of people in our lives that they embody the whole idea of creating art for art's sake, and that's like cosplayers. I mean, some of them are like they're multi-skilled too. Man.
I'm going to throw one of our staffers under the bus when it comes to that.
Yeah,
and that's Savannah Purcell.
Yeah,
she is. She's self-taught completely, so of course she's not like some master class seamstress or anything. But last year she created a Bass Pro Shop pyramid head. Now everybody here except maybe Joe knows Pyramid Head is one of the villains from Silent Hill.
Right.
And we have the giant pyramid, which you can see from the observation deck of the Renaissance Center.
Yeah.
So she took pictures in her Pyramid Head costume that had like the Bass Pro Shop logo and everything, and the light up green with the Bass Pro Shop pyramid in the background.
Oh, I've seen. Yeah, I mean that's creativity.
Right. So I mean, she went from creating the whole thing, and I mean, like they did the head out of foam. They had the giant sword. They 3D printed the Bass Pro logo with the bright green lights in it, and it's amazing what she was able to do out of foam.
And it's funny when you talk to a lot of cosplayers, they're really proud and animated. It's like, look, I made this belt buckle and I had to do this such and such and I, whatever. And that's cool, man.
Using some of those techniques, my wife made witches hats for our Halloween display.
Yeah.
That's the way that I felt when I made like the web of like leather straps for the maneuver gear for my Attack on Titan cosplay.
Yeah, because those cosplays are complicated.
Wait. I've seen that cosplay before. I didn't realize you made that.
I made all the leather straps myself, and I even made like these little put these buckles on there where like it was adjustable to accommodate for when I get older.
That's really awesome, man.
Yeah. Max is he's a purist. If he's gonna
Yeah,
if he's going to do something, he's gonna do it right. So, all right. Well, anyway, I thought that was interesting, and based on the holiday of World Day of Music, I thought it was relevant.
The fact that we barely scratched the surface there. We need to do more art.
Exactly. But speaking of art, when we come back, we're going to talk about the 50th anniversary of Jaws.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. The Geek Patrol is back.
Well done. Here come the test results. You are a horrible person. That's what it says. A horrible person. We weren't even testing for that.
And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmsted and Alan Gilbreth and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And this is interesting because we have do we have 3 or 4 generations represented here? I guess I'm calling a generation every 10 years. Brandon, you're sort of in between. Max, you're the youngest, and Alan and I are on the upper side. But Alan, I remember as a kid Jaws coming out. I mean, this is the 50th anniversary this weekend, and I mean, a lot of people are talking about it. And this movie is set apart, though, for some reason. As a kid, this movie terrified me, man.
That was just before you retired, right, Alan?
Yeah. But you guys, I mean, it's there's a lot of lessons to be learned about the movie Jaws.
Let's just say I read the book before I saw the movie.
Now, how does the book affect you? Because I think I don't remember reading the book, actually.
Most people. All right. Well,
I think
Jaws,
I did, but I don't remember.
Jaws was actually a hit book a year or two before you saw the movie.
Okay.
Jaws was one of the surprise hits of the literary season because legend had it had been turned down by like every major publisher on the planet. And it was like in its second round of going around when somebody went, yeah, we'll take it.
Huh.
And then Jaws became this massive, massive hit. The movie actually hit all of the highlights. It left out some of the things. For instance, Hooper lived.
Oh, right.
He had a magnificent death scene in the book.
Wait a minute. Okay, yeah, that's right. He gets eaten in the book. I guess folks were dealing in spoilers, even though this is 50 years old.
I think we all know the premise of Jaws.
Yeah,
right.
if they haven't watched it by now, I don't think we're going to inspire them to watch it.
The number one thing was, unlike every other horror movie ever made, and Jaws was a horror movie, you didn't see the critter.
And it wasn't necessarily because that was their intention at the beginning either.
No, they were going to.
Made it better.
Man, Bruce was going to be in like every scene.
The mechanical shark.
And
then they discovered towing a 25-foot shark behind a boat didn't work real good.
Nope. And it filled up with water, and then the servos went out, and it's one of the few times where you got to see smoke on the water without, yeah.
They said filming was a nightmare. I'm guessing even things like the constant rocking would make it hard to keep your camera. I mean, I would just think there's a million problems.
And it was cold.
That's so true too. Because they filmed it in New England, right? I mean, so
part of it was filmed outside of Destin. Part of it was filmed in New England. A few scenes were actually filmed by naturalists.
But Alan, you would know this. I thought Jaws was based on a true story of something that happened like in the 1920s or something like that.
All right, Jaws
is inspired by.
Was inspired.
Story. The story that Quint tells when they're drinking on the boat is a true story.
Wait, his story was about the war, though, right?
Right.
Oh,
right. They dropped the bomb.
Yeah, they didn't have that many people die though from sharks.
All right.
Most of them who died in that died from hypothermia.
Yeah, exactly.
That story was the creepiest part of the whole thing when he's talking about how they all fell in the water and one by one his shipmates are disappearing. And it shows why he hates sharks.
Yeah.
And why it was the way he was so stoic when he was presenting that too.
Yeah, exactly. So
well,
it was also one of the few times Robert Shaw was sober on set.
or not being flown back to Canada real quick.
Yeah.
There was a series of shark attacks in the early 1905s or so in which bull sharks went up a river.
Oh.
And a bull shark is perfectly capable of living in salt or fresh water. And there were some unfortunate attacks. And so being attacked by a shark was not an unknown thing in the Northeast.
Okay.
And of course, the fact that Jaws was also played out as a political thriller in the fact that the mayor will not let them close the beaches.
Oh, that's right, because it's the big holiday weekend. And
Remember, it's the big weekend. It's when everybody makes all the money. So Murray Hamilton was the actor, and he played the sleazy Mayor Vaughn beautifully.
He even dressed the part, man. That stupid suit he wore.
Hey. Used car salesmen today would be offended by you saying that.
The movie opens with a death that is unseen, undescribed, and is actually pretty brutal.
It is.
You don't see anything. I mean, it was the Vincent Price School of Acting, and we all knew sharks existed, but nobody had really taken this. And of course, we can't leave out the fact that Steven Spielberg wasn't anybody.
That's what's interesting.
He was just, the kid out of film school with an idea, and he was crazy enough to want to try to do this.
And he was pretty sure when it was all said and done, he would never work in Hollywood again.
Yeah, he was.
I was going to say, you pick your first movie to be something, for one thing, filming it in the water, having all these variables that could go wrong.
Well, you've got to remember, Joe, back in those days, directors didn't chase after, movies. Directors chased after studios, and then studios said, well, we got this thing here. Why don't you...
Oh, so this wasn't his baby.
Well, it's like, they got a handful of things, and it's more along the lines of, all right, pick your poison. Let's see what you can do.
Wait a minute. Do you think somebody at the studio didn't like him and they purposely gave him...
There were 3 or 4 different things he got to choose from. This is the one he chose out of that patch.
Doesn't this say something about him, though, that he chose the hard... I don't know what his choices were, but could he have picked anything harder than this?
Probably.
I mean, that's interesting. I didn't realize that. I thought he spearheaded this whole thing, and this was his... Like, he really wanted to bring this book to life, but you're saying the studio...
Yeah.
No, the studio really wanted to bring this book to life.
Yeah.
Okay.
And everybody else had better sense than to try to.
All right. Well, we're going to continue the drama when we come back here on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. The Geek Patrol is back.
As a jock, it is my duty to give nerds a hard time.
And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmsted and Alan Gilbreth and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And we're just reminiscing and talking about the 50th anniversary of Jaws. And I'm learning some stuff. I always learn stuff on this show. I didn't realize Steven Spielberg... Well, I knew he was kind of a nobody, but I didn't realize he was... The studio came to him and said, here's the movie you're doing. Is that right? They gave him a few choices.
No, it's like you got this young and upcoming director. The studio, the producers are like, all right, we're gonna test the kid out. These are things we want to get made.
Okay.
And who knows what the other ones were? They very well this could have very well seemed like the easy one to him.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
But it's also something that if you succeed, you're gonna make a mark.
Well, I will
just
say,
like an exploding, robot shark.
I will say too, Alan. You mentioned that this was based on a book, and actually, now that I think of it, I do remember reading that book because I thought there were points where they tell the story from the point of view of the shark or something. Mm-hmm. But the one thing I remember as a kid is you would go to somewhere where they sold books, and the cover. I mean, I know you say don't judge a book by the cover, but this one I really think had a lot to do with selling the book. I mean, the cover is perfect. And we all know what it looks like, and they didn't change it for the movie, did they? I mean, that's basically...
It was, Peter Benchley did an amazing job telling a story, and he was even the reporter in the movie, which I found amusing.
Okay. So he was involved in that. So
yeah, he was sort of involved in the project, but, This was one of those movies where everybody had to buckle down and find a way to get it made.
Yeah, because nothing was going their way, man.
Well, welcome to projects. I mean, Joe, you and I have worked on things in the past where just, all right, we need to do A. Well, we can't get A done. All right, we'll get to B. Well, if you can't get B done, well, you move on to C. And and that was this entire production. And what ended up happening at the end of it, and I'm going to give some mad props to Mr. Spielberg and his movie cutting department. They cut together a movie that was amazing, but the real star of the movie, and since it is a music theme, that movie was nothing without that music.
And you talk about audio cues and music cues and everything. That simple, what is that, a cello, or is that just a do-do-do-do-do-do?
When that little soundtrack by John Williams got rolling, and you heard that, boom,
yeah,
boom. The minute that happened, something visceral happened in your heart, and you just knew something was not going to go well.
Yeah.
This was the movie that proved sound was integral.
Yeah.
This was a movie that if you couldn't smell that seawater, you weren't in the movie. This became the very first summer blockbuster you had to go see because everybody saw it.
Right.
This was also one of the first movies where everybody had to go see it 2 or 3 times because, Brandon, have you seen that one? Oh, my God, I'm taking you back.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay.
And then me and Brandon came and grabbed Joe, and then we went and saw it for the 3rd time.
And what's really bad is it's like, the 3 of us are there together, and all of a sudden we come out of there and we're talking about it, and you bring up a scene that we missed something. So we got to go back and see what you saw that we didn't.
Yeah. But it's interesting how many levels it works on because it's like you're thinking, okay, well, it even as scary as it is, as long as you don't go in the ocean, you're fine. However, I remember being a kid, I watched that movie and I would go to the swimming pool and I got creeped out. You know what I mean? It's just the minute you got into water, you felt vulnerable.
The state of Florida
Joe's in the bathroom
movie.
going, are there miniatures?
Well,
you know
you
what I
pulled
mean?
that handle, did it go dump?
Yeah, it works on a lot. Well, and then we would swim in lakes and stuff.
And here's the thing. We remember the brutality of this movie. We remember the horror, the suspense, and everything else. It's a PG movie.
Well, PG movies back in those days are a little
but
more
you but you think about that. It's like it's just back those days we had you had G, you had PG, you had R, you had X.
Right. Yeah. There was no nuance there. I've seen some PG movies and I'm like, okay, how is this not R-rated? It's like,
and meanwhile, I've seen X-rated films from the 70s and 80s that I'm going like, that wasn't very violent. There was no nudity. There was no sexual situation, but it was still rated X because it was considered vulgar and offensive at that time.
Interesting.
But nowadays, Jaws, even with the hidden monster, that's going to be an R rating.
I don't know about you though. For me, the whole thing that makes that sells the whole thing is the acting. I love Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw's interactions,
especially the fact they didn't like each other, so there was this real tension there.
Yeah,
they didn't like each other, and they didn't like each other.
Oh, that's right.
Both
in real
on
life,
and
they
off the camera, they were not big friends. They were not hanging out.
Well,
did Robert Shaw like anybody though? Wasn't he? No, you said he was drunk the whole time.
He had a problem with alcoholism, but when the cameras rolled, he was there. But then the rest of the time, he was an angry old man.
He always has something behind his eyes because I've seen him in other things. He played like Henry VIII. He always looks like he's ready to kill you.
He also apparently pranked Dreyfuss on set and shot him in the face with a fire hose.
That's a prank?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you can get hurt with that, right?
We talk about rating system.
It's the 70s, baby.
Yeah.
Wasn't this one of Richard Dreyfuss's first?
It was one of everybody's earlier movies except for Quint.
Yeah, that's true. Because
Roy Schneider was not a big name running around yet. He would be, but
even then, though, he had a limited. Well, I don't know. But
he had a limited appeal.
No, I mean, I just don't remember him in a lot of things past the 90s. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if I'm remembering correctly, but
Well, I mean, I think his last big prominent role was Sequest.
There you go.
Yeah, there was Sequest. There was the Super Helicopter. There was Bob Fosse.
Okay. All right. We're going to continue the conversation when we come back here on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. The Geek Patrol is back.
Drop the robot.
And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmsted and Alan Gilbreth and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And we've been talking about the 50th anniversary of Jaws. Before we move on, you guys, I do have a question, Alan, and it's I guess it's science related, but the big finale of Jaws, of course, is he gets the shark gets an air tank wedged in his mouth. Mm-hmm. They shoot it and it explodes. A pretty good explosion too.
It does. It's a beautiful explosion.
What would actually happen? You're the
utter
scientist.
and complete fiction.
Yeah, because what happens if you shoot? Now we're not telling anybody to go out and do this, but
do not do this.
Okay.
You shoot an air tank, you have now created a missile.
Yeah, it would.
Wait a minute. So
it
what
would
do
have
you mean?
shot. Basically, he would have shot the air tank.
And it would have shot out the back end of that shark.
Well, that wouldn't have been too bad, although
right,
that might not have killed him.
It wouldn't have exploded.
Oh, it would have killed it. It would have killed it, but it wouldn't have been dramatic. And it was pointed out to Mr. Spielberg that the end of his movie was completely incorrect.
Because he tried to seem pretty grounded a lot of times.
He did, but all right.
Why couldn't they just had like a propane tank or something that was part of the
why
ship?
would you have a propane tank on a boat?
I don't know.
I'm just
for a
pointing
little
out,
stove or something.
Well, I'm just pointing out they went with what they had, and what they had was a scuba tank. That was the choice they made. They put it in his mouth, and here came the giant rubbery Bruce with the big tank in it and a head full of squid and corn syrup.
Jeez.
And
is that what they blew out of him?
And the quote was, "If you've stuck with me till now, you want to see this shark go boom."
Yeah. Okay.
The shark's gonna go boom. Basically, if you haven't bailed on this movie yet,
mm-hmm.
you have earned an explosion. This is what I gotta blow up. Now, Mythbusters and everybody else has picked on this from the very, very beginning, but let's face it, the boom is very satisfying.
Because I was just thinking about it. I'm like, okay, the first thing that comes to mind is like, I don't know, a harpoon or I don't know, really. I don't know how else you take out a shark. Maybe you...
None of the other Jaws movies had a satisfying end of the shark.
Maybe that's the problem, too. Plus, but the explosion, especially as it's coming at him, and wasn't he down to like his last bullet?
His last bullet, he's 2 inches off the water.
Right.
It's over. It is over if he doesn't get him.
Right.
And he gets him, and then you have that dramatic underwater scene where you see the body begin to tip down and begin to flow with all of the ocean debris going on around it. So,
which would have attracted more sharks.
Well, but which
True. I mean, not to nitpick,
to look at Mr. Spielberg and go, you knew this choice you were making, and history has proven, while it was movie magic, and it wasn't how it would have ended, but he made the right choice.
Yeah, no,
because
I'm
we
not
all
complaining.
needed a good, satisfying boom. And when Roy looks at him and says, "Smile, you gruesome blankety blank blank blank," and pulled that trigger, let's face it, everybody in the theater wanted to see the shark blow up.
Yeah. And
what we didn't want to see was the shark get a really surprised look on his face as the air tank went blowing out his backside and went scooting halfway out into the Atlantic. That was not how this was.
Well, you wonder if they test ran that.
For those
that
of
idea.
you listening at home with no video, I want you to know that Alan just made that face.
Yeah. I mean, okay.
Because that's the
Did
reality.
they workshop that idea? I wonder.
God.
So, like,
But,
okay.
Stephen made the decision to go against science and give us the boom.
Okay. Well, I'm glad he did. So,
After
yeah.
seeing that, I don't know if I can function the rest of the episode.
Well, Alan, okay. So happy anniversary to Jaws. I have a sense it's getting downloaded a million, lots of times.
It's been played a few
Dude,
times.
there is a brand new 50th anniversary edition on Peacock with an introduction from Spielberg.
And the Lego set.
Yeah, that's
dude.
right.
Max, did you see the McFarlane diorama? It's a 3D fully functioning version of the movie poster.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll show you that, and we can put it on the website.
And it's from McFarlane. Does it actually eat her?
Well, no.
Well, it's a McFarlane diorama. I'm just asking.
It's literally a diorama. It doesn't have any action feature.
Oh, okay. I'm just checking, though, because it is from McFarlane.
Right.
Yeah.
He's
And
known for
he
blood.
he would not shy away.
Right.
So the next thought is, how many movies owe this movie a debt of gratitude?
Oh, good point.
I don't know how many. I know there's a lot, but I can think of 3 movies that owe it an apology. That's Jaws 2, Jaws 3, and Jaws
yeah.
the Revenge.
I really
but
don't
Deep
remember
Blue Sea
much.
was fun.
The only one I remember is in the Caribbean.
That's the
and
Revenge.
just
Oh,
how-
that's
and-
3.
That's the Revenge. 3D is at SeaWorld.
Oh, that's right.
It's at the water park.
But what was the second one? Because that one I just forget.
That was the one with the electrical cable.
But it was still Roy Schneider,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
And,
yes.
they were trying to. Were they saying this is the shark's kid, or I can't remember even.
No,
what
it was another
just
one.
the new shark. So to me, it undercuts the whole big drama. I mean, he saved the day. He blew the shark up and dropped. Here we go once again. Sequels diminishing,
And this was the first time where we learned that you get diminishing returns.
Yeah. 4 sequel. I mean, or 3 sequels. It's hard to imagine, but anyway, Alan, you were saying other movies really piggybacked on this.
Well, if you think about it, look at the soundtracks.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, let's be honest. A couple of years later, we got Star Wars. And if you don't have the sound on, Star Wars is not all that interesting. You turn on the sound. Oh, and amazingly, wasn't it John Williams that did the soundtrack to Star
this
Wars?
guy's got the touch.
Yeah. And suddenly Star Wars has got you
No, that
riveted
was-
to the edge of your seat.
Joe, that was Stan Bush who had the touch. This is John Williams.
Okay.
He is.
Yeah.
All right. But
So I'm just going to say that, movies immediately after Jaws really learned some lessons. And through the 80s, we got some pretty great movies.
all right. Well, we're going to discuss those when we come back here on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. The Geek Patrol is back.
We better not risk another frontal assault. That rabbit's dynamite.
And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Alan Gilbreth and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And we had done we talked about the 50th anniversary of Jaws, and Alan gave us the actual scientific answer of what happens when you shoot an air tank. It doesn't explode. But I do have one quick question before we move back to our topic. When it comes to shooting an air tank, how long you said it turns into a missile, like it literally would have blown out his back end.
Yes.
Okay, but I guess I'm wondering, first of all, how you know that, where you learned that information, but also how long would it, in other words, if you shot it and you put it in the water, how long would it go for?
Depends
before it
on how
ran
much
out of
gas
steam?
is in it.
Okay, what's
And
your
how big a
estimate?
hole?
20 seconds, 5, I don't know.
Between 5 and 20 is probably a pretty good estimate.
Enough to get to his backside.
Would
so-
it also be different if it was an incendiary round?
Well,
if
it depends on the gas that's in it, but the incendiary would only matter if you were like blowing up a propane tank.
Okay.
This had compressed just compressed regular air in it.
This was about pressure, not
This
explosion.
was all about the amount of pressure in that tank.
You weren't going for pageantry.
Okay.
Yes,
no wonder.
yes, and
they went with
anybody that ever watched the A-Team knew that you could knock the nozzle off of a tank off of
With a
air
hammer.
tank, and it would go flying out in the air. So
And with a hammer.
with a hammer, yeah. I'm not advocating that either. Don't do that.
Anyway, that was just a quick question. But
This is in the obligatory. Don't try this at home, kids.
yeah, we
And
don't want to get sued.
I was never in a hospital when an oxygen tank fell over and punched a hole through a wall. Never happened.
No.
Never
There you go.
happened. Never saw that happen. Nope.
But Alan, you were talking about how many lessons were learned out of Jaws, and of course, this really did launch his career, right? I mean,
And this launched, well, of course, Mr. Spielberg is still, producing amazing movies. Let's talk briefly about John Williams, who came up with dum 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 dum
Yeah.
dum 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 because then he came up with Star Wars. He
Indiana
came up with the
Jones,
Imperial
Superman.
March, Superman, E.T. Did all the Indiana Jones.
did he do Close Encounters? That
No, he didn't do that one. He did Schindler's List, and I know he did at least 2 or 3 of the Harry Potter movies, the first ones.
So he
So-
couldn't save that. Well, never mind. No, the first two are actually. I like the first two. So.
I'm just saying. You start looking at the amount of. Saving Private Ryan's the other one I was trying to remember. Of where music really owns and commands that movie.
Yeah.
It tells you what to feel, when to feel. And Jaws was the one where, let's face it, you're looking at water. What are you looking at? Ocean, just water.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on. There is nothing in the next 2 minutes of this movie except for the musical score getting a little louder as you look at water.
Yeah, your
And that
imagination
is-
is filling everything else in.
If that is not one of the most terrifying scenes of the movie, because all right, it kind of goes back to what is the attraction of fishing? The attraction of fishing is you don't actually know what's down there.
Yeah.
That's
It's like a big
kind of the
mystery.
thrill. That's kind of
Yeah.
the big thrill. I'm fishing for bass. Well, it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to catch a bass. So you have that kind of unknown thing going on with the water. So we're staring at nothing but water, just a camera shot of water, and that sound is absolutely playing on every nerve in your body. So I know we've got a little sound. We mentioned sound earlier, and these movies are just dominated by the sound telling you what to feel and telling you how you're going to react.
Do you think it also plays into the idea of, I think even in Shakespeare or something, if somebody's dragged off stage and you hear a scream and, whatever you're imagining is probably 100 times worse than what's actually happening, and it makes it scarier because of the mystery. And in other words, when you're watching Jaws, you're almost participating
Good
more
case
in the
point.
movie.
Good case in point, there's this Broadway production of 1984 where there's this torture scene, and I believe the torture scene takes place away from the audience.
It's off screen.
It's off screen, and that makes it even more horrifying.
Right.
I'm sorry. I went down the rabbit hole. I apologize, but I have to make a correction.
Okay.
He did compose Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And Midway.
And Midway.
And Dracula back in 1979.
Oh, what didn't this guy do? He was like the king of all composers.
It's interesting because people go, oh, well, he has a great gig. But, don't forget, this guy had a lot of pressure on him. They expect results with at that point.
I'm still going through here.
I don't know. He's only got
Space
5
Camp,
Oscars, 22 Grammys.
The Witches of Eastwick, Empire of the Sun.
Oh, the soundtrack was so good to the Witches of
The
Eastwick.
Accidental Tourist, Born on the 4th of July, just everything. The man had his hand in everything.
Isn't that something? So it made,
Hook, Home Alone,
Really?
JFK.
Home Alone.
Really? He did Hook?
Huh.
Wow, I did not realize he did Hook. I thoroughly
And then,
enjoyed
of course,
that. But this was just the power
And
of what happened when all these components come together.
I also wonder if it's in Harrison Ford's contract that he shows up because, he composed
All
Sabrina.
Indiana.
And no,
No, he did
there's a
Sabrina.
Presumed Innocent, which is another Harrison Ford movie, and it's like a ton of things with Harrison Ford in it, and boom, John Williams is right there as the composer.
Huh.
Oh, that is amazing. That's awesome.
Dude, Amistad, Saving Private Ryan.
Yes, I knew.
Dude,
I knew.
Angela's
Saving
Ashes.
Yep. He did Angela's Ashes too.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Midway.
Midway.
That's
Unbelievable.
Just always going to be one of my
Soundtrack.
favorite soundtracks. It's scores anyway.
Well, it just shows too the importance of using all the tools in your toolbox. Music and sound is a huge deal.
Who would have thought we would have come full circle in celebration of music?
Yeah, and it's almost like we did it on purpose. No, I can't say we did it on purpose, but it did bookend the show. Whatever happened and whatever synergy happened, it doesn't matter because the show's over. We
magic's
got to get
always
out of
there,
here.
man.
So until next week, we are the Geek Patrol, and I am Joe Thorderson.
I'm Alan Gilbreth.
I'm Maximilian.
And whatever your reason, get out and make some art in the name of Brandon Olmsted.